everybody in the chat. But the brother Rod Hayes, a lot of people just kept sharing his videos with me. And in an organic way, not spamming me to try to, in an organic way. I would just see this person, that person share the brother's videos about Larry Hoover and the Three Kings. And the brother, Rod, you say some intriguing, interesting things. And where the place where you come from, it resonated with me. It struck a nerve with me. So I said, damn, I gotta get this brother on a show. And then when the Kanye concert happened, after that went down and they did the Larry Hoover concert, I was like, yeah, I definitely got to get the brother on the show to get some more, have him go a little bit more in depth about what's going on. Why is Larry Hoover named so much everywhere right now? I just keep hearing it. Every month I hear it a little more and a little more and a little more and a little more. And you was one of the brothers behind it. I heard you months ago, and I'm like, damn, this brother, he keep talking about Larry Hoover and something spiritual. So that's what made me reach out to the brother family and get him on the show. You talk about our powers. Let me just ask you this, and you just went off in the beginning, and it was powerful. So that was what a way to start the show, brother. I appreciate you for just going in your bag in the beginning. But one of the things you say, we're so brainwashed, as you say. We went to these things we call school, which was just brainwashing facilities, and they don't teach us about these powers that all the spiritual teachers tell us we have. And one thing I heard you say, you talked about the woman. You always talk about the goddesses and when they twerk and how that affects the weather. Now that's something to an intellectual, somebody who's educated through the school system. That's the craziest shit. They're like, oh, this dude is completely nuts. Tell me the science of that. Tell me the science of that, my brother.
So twerking. If you remember when hip hop first started, it used to be a very common theme in hip hop. My grandma and your grandma were sitting by the fire. We used to always be around the fires. The women used to do the conjure with the dance. The rain dancing is the men's job. The earth shaking is the women's job. The sway of the matriarch, it's an old tradition in our community where the women so we didn't have to fight bombs. We used the weather. We didn't need heart. These women are heart. They Tesla coils of energy. And when they sync together and they come to an agreement and they dance and they shake the earth shake back. Right? So when you see all of these local cultural dances, like they got ballrooming in Chicago, that's a conjure. Straight out of New Orleans. When you see them hillbillies box stepping, fox trotting, that's conjure. Right? All of these dances are old conjures. They come from the subconscious mind, and people think they're making a new dance. You're not making a new dance, you're remembering an old conjure. The movement of the body, when synced with nature, it's like a ripple in the pond. Right? The more powerful the person is, the bigger the stone you drop in the pond, the bigger the ripple. Right? So the power of the women is drawn by Tesla coil sequencing. Put them in the ground, line them up, 369, 369, and let them twirl. If you go back to the Salem witch hunts, this is one of the things that inspired the massacre of women all across the land. Because they caught the sisters teaching them in the woods how to do the sacred dances to call nature. So they killed everything that looked like they was dancing. This is what the Holy Ghost is in the church. The Holy Ghost of the church, it ain't in the Catholic Church. Why it ain't in the Catholic Church? It ain't in the Church of Canterbury. Why it ain't over there? Why they don't catch the Holy Ghost? But they catch it in the Badoon, dancing around the fire, shaking their bum, buck winding. Tootsie Roll.
Think about the suppression of that institution becomes so catalyzing that them women they be like, oh, I gotta let it, and they just start letting
They just
go
gotta, yeah,
because
yeah.
they suppressing that coil. You suppressing the coil, then the shit take over you and it starts riding you. You feel me? And I'm sure that that's what everybody has witnessed in church. It's because I've witnessed it in spiritual ceremonies when women get mounted. It's the same shit, and they're dancing on purpose. They know what that intertanglement or intertwine is going to bring, because we have said it before. They represent orgone energy, the swaying of their hips, right? It creates orgone energy. Orgone energy is called God energy. That's what you create with. You feel me? So there's something very spiritual in essence
They
about them shaking the earth.
they scientists even created some shit called an orgone accumulator to try to tap into that energy, and they can't use it the same as a living organic female with a functional uterus. If the conjurer is strong enough and her uterus been removed, because this is why they desecration of the sacred places is the removing of the uterus and the cutting off of the breast. And one,
Just to touch on the dancing aspect, before we leave that topic, Rod. I heard you mention crip walking. I guess crip walking, there's some spirituality behind crip walking, huh?
yeah, that's a part of a accumulation of the rain dance. That's called the lightning.
The lightning.
The lightning. So in ancient times, it used to be called crooked walking. The crooked
Mm-hmm.
man walking across the land. That's lightning.
Mm-hmm.
That's Big Tookie,
Mm-hmm.
right? All of the Crips that Crip walk in his honor gives power to that force of lightning that we call the crooked man, right? So when they first started Tookie out, because they had him in cryostasis, and when they first started him out, then the Crips went to Crip walking. It was lightning every goddamn where.
Mm.
I was reporting it in real time while it was happening, and I was telling them and I was showing them. I was like, "Look, the Crips walking, and Tookie waking up out of this motherfucking frozen state. You know, this finna be a problem for this system because now they got the third king added to the equation."
Yeah, and I can attest that post 2019, there has been definitely a very pronounced crip resurgence. You know, when we went to Nipsey's homegoing service in LA, we was like, this shit is like a crip cathedral. I ain't never seen so many crips in my life. And in terms of it becoming imprinted on culture, it just pretty much has taken a stronghold. You know, you've seen the Crip resurgence in Brooklyn by way of the Brooklyn Crips and the Woos and the Chews and all of that. So, you know, can you speak to what relationship, whether it's esoteric or whether it's something that connects to the bonds, what relationship do Chicago street organizations have with LA gangs?
Um, it's funny you would say that because we all vice lords, right? That's Big Mama house. Larry and Jeff from Mississippi, and Tookie from Louisiana, I believe, right? And all that is Big Mama's territory. So when Big Mama boys go out, we connected across the land. We don't have to have eyes on each other to know what each other doing. So when I was a little boy, Big Mama told me that when I get big, I I was to leave no stone unturned. I didn't know what it meant as a child, but she was talking about restoring the land and restoring the people and putting the kings back in their positions. I began to learn that over time as the many messages that her and my mama gave me begin to just come together um like trans.
Webb telescope that they are saying is getting images that they have never gotten before and that people have been waiting for a lifetime. So I don't have you heard about this James Webb telescope? You know what I'm talking about?
I haven't had a chance to look into that.
Okay,
But
okay.
I'll look into it and then I'll get back with you on it so
Mm,
I can be up to speed on what it's talking about. But if you think about it, when they launched the Hubble telescope and
mm,
it was sending pictures back, it was pictures that they had never seen before
mm,
from deeper in space that is closer to the sources of light that is taking pictures of,
mm, mm,
right?
mm,
So it was the same thing with the Hubble. And before that, it was a ground telescope in the Vatican called the Lucifer lens,
mm, mm,
right? Now, earlier you mentioned the name of Lisa Channel, the Matrix Unveiled, ties
mm,
right into what you told me you wanted to discuss tonight, this holographic universe
mm.
and the infiltration of the training universe and being corrupted by adverse forces.
Indeed, because I thought this was Big Mama's plan. I thought Big Mama said, I'm going to create a universe so I could discover more of myself because I am the all that is. So, in order for me to discover who I am, I'm going to create this universe. And through this universe, I could discover who I am. And it seemed like things went left or something like that. So, got to talk to
Well,
you about that.
if you really look at it, the reference is all things come together for the
Rod, that
greater
sound,
good.
you got to come in and out. That sound when you
Sound now?
sound better.
Okay, where was we at?
I was asking you about the Big Mama and her plan and how it went
Oh
left.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was telling you that the quote is all things come together for the greater good. So whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, some kind of way we got to salvage the uselessness from it and use it as part of putting together the grand plan. In the secret societies, the grand plan is called the Great Arcana or the Great Work. And the great work is to teach man how to become what we call the perfected man. This is the Leonardo da Vinci painting of the universal man, right? The painting is symbolic of the mirror images of the ego to the soul. So the ego is the self that the society create for you as a autopilot version in case you don't use your free will, you'll be on autopilot
Right.
like an extra in the video game.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have to follow what's called a predestined path. Before we all come into this matrix, we know what's taking place before we come here. The trick is to receive the amnesia to try to remember under the harsh conditions how we became to be here where we are today, right? And the inquisitive mind is going to look at the structure of creation. The structure of creation is a torsion field. The human body is energetically a torsion field, and the globe Earth is energetically a torsion field. The solar system with the sun at the center is still another torsion field,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all of these torsion fields is energy folding in on itself in the name of some stuff called love.
Mm. Mm.
The love energy tempers the dark energy of the chaos beings that we are. If we don't learn to harvest the love energy, the chaos being becomes destructive to the society at large. They become the monsters in the video game that we going out to go shoot, right? Because they terrorizing all of the players in the game. So without an opposition, you will never know how high you can attain in wisdom because you have nothing to compare it to and nothing to test it against, right? Which is the same with the principle for a hologram. You got to have two fixed points that scan in motion in order to generate the holographic image, right?
Mm.
So I told you before the moon
And the Dark Knight satellite.
are on the same um, rung, but they never collide,
Mm.
right? So this would be like a dual projection system in order to activate us into the simulator,
Mm.
right? The way I'm seeing it, looking at it, like drawing my perception view out into outer space, right? It would appear that we somewhere else and that we are using these avatars on Earth to learn something, which
Mm.
goes to the ancient doctrine that Earth has always been a school.
Mm.
This is the X-Men Academy for the gifted,
Mm.
right? So the dark and horrid conditions we experience is polishing the 666 carbon coal under the pressure and temperature of the oppression in order to turn the coal into its most pristine form as a crystal. And
Mm.
this crystal we know to be a diamond,
Mm.
right? It's the same thing we doing training in this simulation, right? Now, we never know that there's a game at the top of the creation of the construct, and it's called the mastermind game,
Mm.
right? The mastermind game is when you're able to use your psychic abilities to influence the physical world with spiritual um, warfare.
Mm.
In the spiritual sense, you fight to find balance in the dark aspect of creation, the 666 carbon, to generate the 999 ether in the as above, so below,
Mm.
right? So you got 666 on the ground when it manifests in the human form as a melanated being. But the melanin specific that is required is in the reticular formation of the brain. Dr. Richard King write about it. He calls it, call it the black dot,
Mm.
right? Um, and it's written about as the gateway in the Bible as narrow is the way, open is the gate, or something similar to that. That's not an exact quote,
Mm.
right? But we understanding that there's talking about a gateway. Like right now, the image that you sitting in what's called the sun seat because your head is dead center of the sun,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And right.
Mm.
So you come in as the chief in a full feather regalia in order to have this conversation on the matrix because we have to know what's going on in order to break free,
Mm.
right? All of this stuff is part of what we call the game of the gods,
Mm.
right? The game of the gods is the mastermind fifth dimensional chess game.
Mm.
The goal is for us to learn the rules of the game as they are scattered out in the physical world in the different rules of the elements that make up the structure of the world. Like in the society, um, Monopoly tells you about the banking system. So learn the rules to Monopoly, then you understand how the banking system is
Right.
monopolizing,
Right. Right.
right? But you also got to be able to read the words as anagrams, right? As contractions and the long form, short form, etymologically,
Mm-hmm.
colloquially, which is the common language usage of the same word. And when
Mm-hmm.
you start matching up the frequency that generates, it changes it from you seeing a word to you reading it as a frequency over
Right.
the lifetime of the word,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a subconscious function of the mind that automatically takes place. All you have to do is your due diligence and study. And as you activate different parts in the mind, you bring these things into play in resolving the problems in the 3D world so that you can manifest from your God self your best life.
Mm-hmm.
The one who can pull the most people in pursuit of their best life to agree that we all should be able to live our best life creates a critical mass of people who rebel against the side of the society that say that you have to live your life according to the conditions of a corporate legal fiction.
Mm-hmm.
A legal fiction can never generate a society to satisfy the soul of an infinite being. So it's going to create defects at a low vibrational level that can
Mm-hmm.
be corrected from a higher vibrational understanding at that level,
Right. Right.
right? So when we take the mastermind test, they tell us it's a board game. So rules are spread out in the board games. Learn the board games. And is told in a nursery rhyme. Wherever you hear rhymes spoken, keys are given in secret in the public domain, in your face, behind your back.
Mm.
Because if you can read the music, the story can be told without two people ever meeting face to face in
Mm.
order to relay a message across time and space.
Mm. Okay.
Right? So what
Mm.
we doing is we monopolizing the nature of a hologram,
Mm.
right? The hologram, the micro particle of it is all of the same information as the entire hologram itself. So when we look at the construct, we know that we are coming from a light formation called Metatron's cube.
Mm.
Metatron's cube is talked about as the star of life in the book of in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth.
Mm.
And we know the star of life to be a 3D geometric formation of the Magen David or the Shield of David.
Mm.
But that's the false part because it's actually the seal of Solomon. And the 5 point star, the pinnacle, is the seal of David. And David is the king of all kings. And the king of all kings left his kingdom to Solomon. And Solomon was the wisest of them all. And now one wiser than Solomon comes. That's what the book say. So the riddles that they gave us to unravel the mystery is tied up in the story of Solomon and his pursuit to wisdom, and it ties directly into the hero's journey of the great heroes of the ages in the mythologies. So while they was giving us his story, our elders was putting together mythologies that held mysteries that concealed my story, and my story is the rules of engagement in order to reclaim the kingdom for the righteous and to remove the imposters from the land. And so when you follow the blueprint, and the blueprint teaches you growth and development, and in your growth and development, you start to realize that you can conquer your vices. And when you conquer your vices, you have developed to a level of self discipline where you can now be fit to teach self-discipline beyond the reaches of the self, because you did the self-work, the battle with the dark side of the self, the chaotic self that we need to temper with the golden heart in order to make it shine in a righteous formation in order to guide others. So that's why I say, keep not your candle under the wicker basket, but let your light shine that the world may see it. In other words, you have to tell what you know that's going to benefit the most people if you understand what you know and how the people can benefit from it. So the rules that developed from learning the board games and the meaning of the words and the meaning of expressions and how to read the art in the community, which became reading the graffiti that was written on the wall. And the book said, and he was reading the writing from the wall. The graffiti tells me where the tribes identified from and how I can recognize them on the land. They
Mm.
call it tagging,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the tagging is the writing on the wall that's written in the symbolisms that tells us which tribe is in which part of the land, because we didn't used to fly flags. We used to rock totem poles that gave the same information that the tribes give off today in the graffiti that they call the tags. And the tags identify the connections across the land and who's related to who and who belong where at the close of the age. So it all tells itself. So you don't have to tell the story. You can just read it from the script that's written in creation, or what we say was written in the hieroglyphs or the Medu Neter. And the Medu Neter is the words of God, the words of the Neter, which spoke things into fruition, which means they gave the weight and density to the words that empowered the throat chakra to exercise the exceptional insight, as Ryan Karinga wrote, the Husia, authoritative utterances, exceptional insight, which allows the people to see deeper into themselves in order to find their way from freedom from the bondage of an artificial system masquerading as a government. I hope I wasn't too much at one time.
Nah, I mean, whoo, wow, that was now I'm just sitting back learning and listening. Definitely powerful. Let me ask you this, brother. So, we are, let's say we are pre-creation deities, before creation, before the sun, moon, and stars, as I believe the most honorable Elijah Muhammad taught. Um, what relationship, what was we doing before creation? What was our purpose before, or did we just exist in this void before creation? Was it boring before creation? Talk to me about life pre-creation for the primordial beings.
Okay, so when we talk about creation, we're talking about the three-dimensional matrix and the Big
Yes.
Bang scenario
Yes.
in the sudden emergence of physical matter
Mhm.
into existence that people may exist as a physical being,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, so what we looking at is a grand design,
Mhm.
right? The grand design, you have to be outside of the creation if you are the creator,
Mhm.
right? But in this case, the creation takes place within the self,
Mhm.
right? So remember, the torsion fields are cycles within cycles folding in upon themselves.
Mhm.
We are torsion field, like the apple in the hologram.
Right.
We just a part of the whole. So before creation, we was outside of the hologram. We were pure consciousness,
Mhm.
right? And as pure consciousness, we was what you call a whole like being.
Mhm.
In modern times, they call it a spirit being, right? The whole like being is the part of the self that is projected into the physical form that animates you as your body goes through the process of metabolism,
Mm-hmm.
the burning in the breath.
Mm-hmm.
So you always have to inhale oxygen in order to exhale the carbon as it is consumed. It's a it's an energy exchange taking place at every level because the same process of energy conversion that the human body goes through, the atom itself goes through the same process. And when we draw out and look at the universe, it goes through the same process. So when we examine the self, we looked at what we made of at our simplest levels, the cellular level. At the cellular level, we made of crystalline amino acids in a double helix with a sizable portion inactive called junk DNA. And we understand that the unveiled matrix is the matrix in the mitochondrial, which is the powerhouse of the cell. It become a step down capacitor when you condense stardust into a human body in order not to cause spontaneous human combustion because too much light will burn you from the inside out if you can't control it. So the conditions in the person's life is according to their temperament, and it's the temper as the temperance card in the tarot, their ego, so that it can be purified to facilitate the full um embodying of the higher light body into the physical form without the chaotic resistance of the carbon based ego, right? Once the whole light being becomes conscious in the physical body, your awareness of the entire hologram, you see it. So the scientists explain it using physics and metaphysics. The mystics use mysticism and uh, what's that other term? The mystics use mysticism and metaphysics to teach the same thing. Now, when you look into the human training process, every field of learning, when you get to a certain level, you end up into some form of metaphysics, quantum physics, or mysticism, or something of that sort, what we call the occult. The occult is the things that the average layperson will never have the time to properly consume to activate those faculties of consciousness that's at rest within that person, right? Because the humdrum of the day-to-day life is the distraction so that somebody else can harvest their energy, and it's like you over hijacking another person's avatar in the video game
Indeed.
and you making their avatar do what you want them to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? The only way to remedy that is to find all of the what Bobby Hemmings talked about, spirit artificial, right? He said if in one of his lectures he said this counterfeit spirit is still on the earth, but it was here long before what they call white people. And he said, I'm gonna tell you something else. And this was a shocker for me. He said that these folks, they look just like us. Half of them still in Africa to this day, doing that motherfucking destructive conjure work in order to steal the blessings of the righteous and subjugate them in order to hijack their avatars. So then in computer terms, they put in a hard drive that holds um, a series of binary codes that clears out the bugs in the computer and call it virus protection. This become the old souls that understand how the system worked from its creation, because the old souls was there from the earliest creation. And this takes us to the Lovecraft Necronomicon, and the story is told as a fiction, but it's actually the ancient conjure, and it actually is a living sigil packet, and how to activate it and use it the same as you use an app on your phone, except you using a spiritual app in order to develop a function in the physical realm from the spiritual realm that you already supposed to be tapped into.
You talking about H.P. Lovecraft?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, right. Damn, this powerful, man.
So they scattered the pieces around. My job was to find the scattered pieces and bring them all together. And people came from far and wide to give me little pieces to the puzzle, right? And I had to keep track of all of the pieces to the puzzle in order to put it together. So my mother preloaded me on doing puzzles when I was little, because she used to always want me to do puzzles with her,
Excellent.
right? So I see the puzzles in all forms now, and now I can read the ticker in the matrix, so to speak. So when I be talking about stuff, I be talking about it like I'm reading that ticker from the matrix.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Well, well, in terms of let me put the camera back. Yeah, like I said, I'm just, I'm amazing listening to you speak, my brother. Always amazing information when you're on here. Once again, shout out to everybody that is in the building. Make sure you hit the like button. We have an amazing show so far, and we're gonna continue. We'll be on here for about half an hour more, 45 minutes. So enjoy yourself here while we're here, family. Rod Hayes. So I asked you about what we call Big Mama. Now you talk a lot about Inky and Enlil and the Anunnaki. Um, these lesser gods, since we all come from this infinite intelligence, where did they get their jealousy from? Where did they get their envy from? Where did they get these traits from? Being that we all come, we're this hologram. You said the piece of the hologram contains all hologram, so we're just as we got the same amount of power as the entire hologram. I mean, we just appear to be small, but we're really big in stature. Where did they get this inferiority complex from, Rod Hayes, to do all this shit? Because they
It's
seem to be intelligent.
the same thing as to ask in the Sega Genesis game. Mike Tyson is Ironhead,
Mm,
and he the hardest character in the game to beat.
mm,
So you asking that question is like asking, why is the character Ironhead the hardest character to beat?
mm, mm.
It's the same question value.
Got you.
And the reason is because it's programmed that way.
Mm, mm, mm.
There's no other reason, because if we living in a holographic simulation, we living in a program.
Got you.
And if we living in a program, we got to continuously upgrade the software in order for the program to remain current. It's the same with computers. It's the same with the human mind. Our human minds is reduced to lesser thinking with base gossip in order to keep us from ever thinking about more complex questions, and they make us think that we wrong if we ask questions in the society that go against the standard or the norm.
Mm, definitely, definitely. How long does this program, Big Mama, allow this program to go on? Like we said, we keep going through these cycles, the age of Kali, the let's say the age of Aquarius, the age of Pisces. Then the civilization rises, civilization falls again. Then it rises again and falls again. Does just go on for infinity? Does Big Mama allow this universal program to go on to infinity, or do you think does this eventually end according to the ancient texts?
It's a training simulation.
Mm,
Okay, so when you go to the laws of Mott, we know that the whole goal is to find the balance,
mm,
right? Now, if what happens to a star when it loses its balance in real life, according to our understanding of astrology?
what happens?
It goes supernova,
Mm, mm,
right? It can no longer hold on to its own energy.
mm,
In the human form, we learning how to control our energy in an accelerating learning program
mm, mm,
by going through a couple of lifetimes of refining the balancing mechanisms from different angles, right? That's being influenced by different angels,
mm, mm,
right? And they are teaching you how to control your light body matrix. And you once you do that, you become your own neutron star
mm,
in the galaxy, and you become the god in that galaxy universe you create. And to do it all over again to determine um how to refine the balancing of the overall universe in the end.
mm,
So when we look at the polarization of outer space, we're looking at something called the red shift and the blue shift.
mm, mm,
One is drawing things ever closer to the center, and another is pulling everything furthest to its outer reaches,
mm,
right? They
mm,
call it the red shift and the blue shift.
mm,
It's taking place at simultaneously in the same matrix.
mm,
So this creates the two opposing forces, and you need two opposing fixed points in order to establish the base for making the hologram. And they have to be able to to scan, um, for lack of a better way of explaining it, longitude to latitude, and from prime meridian to prime meridian, like an X-ray, right? And then you look at it externally as from us outside of the creation in order to know how you should perceive your inner world by looking inward, then looking back out. It's a comparative analysis of your inner development of your own personal soul so that you can purify your ego and become more um, like it's like graduating high school going to university, right? When you awaken in the matrix, now you graduated. Once you graduate, now you go to university for higher education. And in the meantime, you have a period between the two where you enjoy your graduation gifts before you go to university, right? So you have your graduation party, you hang out with your family for about 6 months or a year, and then you go off to university,
mm,
right? It's the same way when you wake up from consciousness levels. You graduate, then you have a graduation ceremony. In some people's life, it come across as a quinceañera, a coming out ceremony for the princess in the Latin community,
mm,
or a sweet 16 coming out. So she's passed two cycles of life at 14 of 7 years. And then she evaluated for from 12 to 24 months by the elder women to determine when she's functionally fit to be presented into the society as a celebration. When they approve her, she have her ceremony and she is celebrated, right? Because she made it to the through the first two cycles of life. Now she's going into the cycle that requires greater accountability and awareness of the self. Only they erase part of the training methods out of the equation so that they don't have the same family building qualities that they had in times past, right? So we had to restore all that stuff back by putting everything back in its proper position because you shifting the matrix from the microcosm and it's trickling back up to the macrocosm, and then it's going to balance the two out.
Mm. Rod, how long would you say who we call black people, how long have we been down here on Earth? I
Ever
hear,
since ever since Earth been here.
how long would you say that is?
Well, it depends on the terms of years, and it depends on what uh at which period it wasn't always Earth.
What was it?
At one time, it was the great water planet called Tiamat,
Hmm.
right? A lot of the water from the planet, when the asteroid belt was knocked from it, it took a lot of water from the planet that went out through what we call the South Pole, right? And the ice shelf is not an ice wall, it's a shelf. And there's a civilization under it that when the calamity came, drew the water over the civilization and flash froze them, right? During World War II, through going into the archives in Tibet. And in Tibet, they have certain archives that if he was able to reach certain levels of adept understanding, they obligated by universal law to reveal that secret.
Mm.
So when he was coming through the Thule Society, he was looking for the key to where the ancients were still present on Earth because their energy signature never left,
Hmm.
right? So when we figure that out, it's like we doing the rescue in the video game of the ancient ones. Now, we didn't always look physiologically the same, and we wasn't always brown. We used to be shades of blue and green because we were